Imagine a 12-year-old girl, alone in a crowded airport, clutching a worn backpack and a crumpled plane ticket. Her heart races with excitement for her first solo flight. But the world around her doesn't see the sparkle in her eyes. They see her old Dallas Cowboys t-shirt, ripped jeans, and mud-caked sneakers. This is Chloe Davis, a black girl from Dallas, Texas, whose simple appearance hides an extraordinary story about to unfold. Chloe Davis lives in a world that doesn't match the glamour of the life her mother, Vivian Davis, could provide. Vivian is the CEO of Horizon Airlines, one of the largest airlines in the United States, a woman who built an empire while overcoming barriers of race and gender. But Chloe, at 12, isn't swayed by luxury. She embraces simplicity. Her faded Dallas Cowboys t-shirt with the number 22 in worn letters, jeans torn at the knees from park playtime, and sneakers carrying the red Texas dirt like trophies of her adventures. To Chloe, these clothes aren't just fabric. They're a choice, a reflection of her humble soul. Someone who values her grandmother's stories over jewels or expensive dresses. In the small house she shares with her mother in a quiet Dallas neighborhood, Chloe spends hours reading adventure books, picturing herself exploring distant forests or uncovering hidden treasures. Her backpack, a birthday gift from 3 years ago, is so worn it seems threatened to give way, but she carries it with pride. Inside are her treasures, a yellowed copy of The Hobbit, a notebook filled with sketches of plains and landscapes, and a teddy bear named Benny, given to her by her paternal grandmother when she was 5. Benny, missing one eye and with faded fur, is her constant companion, a reminder of the unconditional love from her grandmother in Chicago. Today is a special day, a milestone in Chloe's life. For the first time, she'll fly alone to Chicago to visit that grandmother, a black woman like her, with wrinkles that tell stories of struggle and resilience. Vivian, always keen to teach her daughter humility, gave her a special ticket for a Horizon Airlines flight, but in economy, so you understand the world as it is, not as it could be with money. Her mother said. Chloe doesn't mind. To her, the ticket is more than paper. It's a passport to adventure, to the stories she'll hear from her grandmother, to the cinnamon rolls they'll bake together in the cramped Chicago apartment kitchen. On the morning of the trip, Chloe rises. Before the sun, she checks her reflection in a cracked bedroom mirror, adjusting the backpack on her shoulders. Her brown eyes shine with a mix of anxiety and excitement, and a shy smile lights up her face. She runs a hand through her curly hair, tied in a simple ponytail, and checks the ticket for the 1,000th time, as if it might vanish. You've got this, Chloe, she whispers to herself, hugging Benny before carefully tucking him into her backpack. She descends the stairs of the house, where Vivian waits with a tight hug and a proud look. Be strong, my girl, Vivian says, her voice firm but laced with emotion. And call as soon as you land. Chloe nods, feeling the warmth of her mother's embrace like a shield against the world. She steps out into the orange Texas dawn, the warm May air wrapping around her like a promise. As she walks to the bus stop that will take her to Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, she feels the weight of her backpack and the faint rustle of the ticket in her pocket. The world feels vast, full of possibilities, and Chloe is ready to soar. On the bus, she sits by the window, watching Dallas streets blur by in a wash of colors. She thinks of her grandmother, the stories she'll share about the 1960s, about marching for rights Chloe sometimes takes for granted. She thinks of the fresh coffee scent that fills her grandmother's apartment, the sound of her raspy laugh that carries the weight of a lifetime. Chloe smiles to herself, imagining telling her grandmother about her first plane ride, the clouds she'll see through the window, the feeling of being so high the world below seems small. At the airport, Chloe steps off the bus with her heart pounding. The terminal is a chaos of voices, dragging suitcases, and announcements echoing over loudspeakers. She grips her backpack strap, feeling small in the grandeur of the place but also invincible. This is the start of her great adventure, and nothing not. The curious stares of strangers, the weight of her backpack, or the uncertainty ahead will stop her from living it. With the ticket in hand and a shy smile, Chloe takes a deep breath and steps toward the check-in counter, unaware that the world is about to test her in ways she never imagined. Chloe Davis passes through the revolving doors of Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, her heart beating so fast it feels like it might burst. The terminal is a sea of motion, rolling suitcases, families rushing to gates, executives barking into phones. To her, at 12, it all feels immense, almost magical. like stepping into one of the adventure books she loves. Her worn backpack sways on her shoulders, and she clutches the plane ticket to her chest. The paper already creased from constant handling. The shy smile doesn't leave her face, even as her brown eyes scan the scene with a mix of awe and nervousness. In her backpack, Chloe carries her treasures: a worn copy of The Hobbit, a sketchbook filled with drawings of clouds and plains, and Benny, the teddy bear her grandmother gave her, with faded fur and a missing eye. She pats the backpack as if to ensure Benny is safe, and follows the signage to the Horizon Airlines check-in counter. The airport's air conditioning is chilly, a stark contrast to the Texas heat outside, and Chloe shivers, unsure if it's the cold or the excitement. At the counter, a blue uniformed attendant scans her ticket and hands her a boarding pass with a kind smile. "First time traveling alone?" the woman asks, noticing Chloe's restless energy. "Yes, ma'am," Chloe replies, her voice soft but brimming with pride. "I'm going to visit my grandma in Chicago." The attendant nods, wishing her a good trip, and Chloe feels a warmth in her chest, as if the world is rooting for her. But as she heads to security, Chloe starts to notice the stares. A suited man with a shiny briefcase glances at her over his glasses, frowning. A woman pulling a designer suitcase murmurs something to her husband, pointing at Chloe's muddy sneakers. "Kids like that, traveling alone." Chloe overhears the comment, quiet but clear. She grips her boarding pass tighter, the paper crinkling in her fingers, and keeps her eyes forward. "It's nothing," she thinks, trying to convince herself. "They don't know me. I'm here to fly." In the security line, she places her backpack on the conveyor belt, carefully removing her sneakers to avoid dirtying the floor. A security officer, a black man with graying hair, notices her tense expression and winks at her. "You'll love the flight, little one," he says, his tone reminiscent of the grandfather Chloe never knew. She smiles back, relieved, feeling a little less alone. Passing through the metal detector, she retrieves her belongings and slips her sneakers back on, her heart lighter. Almost there, she murmurs to herself, picturing the moment she'll see the plane through the gate's window. Walking through the terminal, Chloe passes shops full of pricey souvenirs and restaurants wafting scents of coffee and warm bread. She resists the urge to buy anything. Her allowance is small, and she promised her mom she'd save for a gift for her grandma. Instead, she sits on a bench near the gate, pulling out her sketchbook. With a stubby pencil, she starts drawing what she imagines she'll see from the plane: fluffy cotton-like clouds, the sun glowing on the horizon, the earth below like a puzzle. Each stroke on the paper fuels her excitement, as if she's sketching her own future. While waiting, Chloe notices more stares. A suited man holding an expensive coffee passes by and mutters something about unaccompanied kids to the woman beside him. Chloe pretends not to hear, focusing on her drawing, but feels a slight knot in her stomach. She recalls her mother's words, "You are enough, Chloe. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise." She takes a deep breath, tracing a cloud more firmly on the paper, determined not to let anything steal her joy. This is her moment, her adventure, and she's resolved to live it. When the loudspeaker announces boarding for the Chicago flight, Chloe tucks away her sketchbook and stands, her heart leaping with excitement. She clutches her boarding pass, feeling the weight of the promise it holds: a trip to see her grandma, to hear her stories, to feel at home. With her backpack on her shoulder and Benny safe inside, Chloe joins the boarding line, her smile shining despite the stares. She doesn't know what awaits her on the flight, but for now, she's filled with hope, ready to take off into the unknown. Chloe Davis walks down the jet bridge at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, the sound of her worn sneakers echoing in the metal corridor. The boarding pass is damp in her hands, crumpled from how tightly she grips it, like an anchor amid a whirlwind of emotions. The smell of jet fuel and the distant hum of plane engines surround her, filling her chest with a mix of excitement and nervousness. She's finally here, about to board her first solo flight to Chicago, where her grandmother awaits. Her shy smile still glows, though a pang of anxiety lingers, which she tries to ignore. Entering the Horizon Airlines plane, Chloe hands her boarding pass to a flight attendant with blonde hair and red lipstick, who scans it with a quick motion. "Economy, seat to 3B, the attendant says, not meeting Chloe's eyes, pointing down the aisle. Chloe nods, murmuring a barely audible thank you, and navigates the narrow aisle, dodging bags being stowed and passengers settling in. She finds her seat, a window seat. Just as her mother promised, "You'll love seeing the clouds," Vivian had said, and Chloe feels a warmth in her chest at the thought. She stows her worn backpack under the seat, keeping Benny, the teddy bear, safe inside. Sitting down, Chloe buckles her seatbelt carefully, her fingers trembling with anticipation. Through the window, she sees baggage carts moving on the tarmac, the airport lights glowing against the darkening sky. Her mind races to the stories. She'll tell her grandma how the plane took off, how the clouds looked like cotton castles, how she was brave traveling alone. She smiles, imagining her grandma's raspy laugh at her descriptions. But as the last passengers board, Chloe notices the stairs. A flight attendant, with Ashley embroidered on her uniform, passes by and stops at her seat. Her blue eyes scan Chloe up and down, lingering on the faded Dallas Cowboys t-shirt, the ripped jeans, the muddy sneakers. "Are you in the right seat?" Ashley asks, her tone dry, almost accusatory. Chloe feels heat rise to her face but keeps her voice steady. "Yes, ma'am, seat to 3B, she replies. Showing her boarding pass, Ashley raises an eyebrow, exchanging a glance with another flight attendant, Megan, who approaches with a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. "All alone," how Megan says, her voice laced with something Chloe can't quite place but that makes her stomach tighten. "Yes, I have permission," Chloe explains, her voice growing softer as she points to the document attached to her boarding pass, signed by her mother, authorizing her travel as an unaccompanied minor. The flight attendants exchange another look, and Megan gives a half smile before walking away, whispering something to Ashley that Chloe can't hear. Chloe tries to convince herself she's imagining things. They're just doing their job, she thinks, turning her gaze to the window. But the unease lingers. Like a stone in her stomach, she pulls her sketchbook from her backpack, trying to distract herself. With her pencil, she starts outlining a plane soaring through clouds, but her hand trembles slightly. Her mother's words echo in her mind. "You are enough, Chloe." She takes a deep breath, trying to recapture her earlier excitement, but the glances from Ashley and Megan weigh on her, as if questioning her right to be there. As the plane begins to taxi down the runway, the rumble of the engines vibrating through the seats, Chloe clutches her sketchbook to her chest. She looks out the window, watching the ground slowly pull away, and tries to focus on the adventure awaiting her. But a small, insistent voice in her head whispers, "What if I don't belong here?" She shakes her head, pushing the thought away, and murmurs to herself, "You've got this, Chloe. It's just a flight." Still, the seed of insecurity has been planted, and she doesn't know the worst is yet to come. The Horizon Airlines plane climbs smoothly into the sky, the lights of Dallas growing smaller through Chloe's window. She presses her sketchbook to her chest, trying to focus on the clouds emerging, fluffy and white, like the ones she's drawn so many times. The engine's hum is constant, and the "Keep Seatbelts Fastened" sign still glows above. Chloe breathes deeply, wanting to reclaim the excitement she felt boarding. But the exchange between Ashley and Megan lingers in her mind. She tries to brush it off, telling herself it's just nerves from her first solo trip. When the seatbelt sign turns off, the cabin service begins. Chloe's throat is dry from the airport rush and boarding anxiety. She timidly raises her hand when she sees Ashley pushing the beverage cart down the aisle. "Excuse me, ma'am," Chloe says, her voice soft, almost a whisper. "Can I have a glass of water, please?" Ashley stops the cart and turns to her, blue eyes narrowing as they scan Chloe once more. The faded Dallas Cowboys t-shirt, ripped jeans, muddy sneakers, everything seems judged in a single glance. "Are you sure this is your seat?" Ashley asks, crossing her arms, her tone sharp as a blade. There's no trace of kindness, only cold suspicion that makes Chloe's heart race. "Yes, ma'am, it's to 3B, she replies, trying to stay calm, reaching for her crumpled boarding pass to show, "I have permission to travel alone, my mom." Before she can finish, Ashley cuts her off, rolling her eyes. "Look, I have other passengers to serve. Wait a bit," she says, her voice dripping with impatience. Chloe's face burns, a lump forming in her throat. She lowers the boarding pass, her hands trembling slightly, and watches as Ashley serves juice and coffee to other passengers with forced but polite smiles. A suited man in the seat ahead gets a glass of water with ice and a napkin, accompanied by a warm "Here you go, sir." A woman in the next row receives a soda and a "Have a great flight." But when Ashley passes Chloe again, she ignores her request entirely, as if the girl were invisible. Chloe bites her lip, her eyes welling up, but she forces herself not to cry. Maybe she just forgot. she thinks, trying to believe it, though the ache in her chest says otherwise. She looks out the window, the clouds now tinged orange by the sunset, and tries to focus on the beauty of the view. But the humiliation stings, and she feels a weight she can't explain. Why did Ashley treat her like that? Is it her clothes, her age, or her skin? Chloe grips her sketchbook tighter, her fingers tracing the outline of the plane she drew earlier. She thinks of her mother, Vivian, and the stories she told about facing prejudice to get where she is. "You are enough, Chloe," Vivian always said. But in that moment, sitting alone in seat 3B, Chloe feels small, almost invisible, when Megan, the other flight attendant, passes by. Chloe musters the courage to try again. "Excuse me, can I have a glass of water?" she asks, her voice even softer, almost pleading. Megan stops, glances at Ashley down the aisle, and gives a smile that's more of a grimace. "We'll get to that," she says, but doesn't move to fetch the water. Instead, she leans toward Ashley, and Chloe hears a whisper followed by a muffled giggle. The two flight attendants exchange looks, and Chloe's stomach churns. She lowers her head, eyes fixed on her sketchbook, as a tear escapes and lands on the paper. Smudging the drawing of a cloud dot, Chloe clutches Benny inside her backpack, seeking comfort in the teddy bear that always reminds her of her grandma. She wants to believe it's just a misunderstanding, that the flight attendants are just busy. But the emptiness in her chest grows, and the dryness in her throat feels like more than thirst. It's a longing to be seen, to be treated like any other passenger. As the plane cuts through the sky, Chloe stares out the window, wishing the clouds could hide the pain beginning to overwhelm her. The steady hum of the Horizon Airlines plane's engines fills the air. But for Chloe Davis, in seat 3B, the sound feels muffled, as if the world around her is closing in. The soft sunset light streams through the window, bathing her sketchbook in golden hues, but she barely notices. The tear that smudged her cloud drawing still glistens on the paper, and her hands tremble as she tries to focus on the view outside. The glass of water she asked for never came, and Ashley's disdain still burns in her mind, like an unexplained wound. At 12 years old, Chloe tries to tell herself it's just a misunderstanding, but the seed of doubt has taken root, and the weight in her chest only grows. Megan, the other flight attendant, passes through the aisle again, pushing the beverage cart with a rehearsed smile for other passengers. Chloe, her throat still dry, hesitates but decides not to ask for anything again. She feels Megan's eyes on her, a quick but loaded glance that makes her skin prickle. Then Megan stops beside Ashley at the back of the aisle, and the two begin whispering, their eyes flicking toward Chloe now and then. She tries to ignore it, focusing on her sketchbook, tracing the outline of a plane so hard the pencil nearly tears the paper. But Megan's words cut through the air, loud enough for Chloe to hear, as if meant for her. "How does a girl like that get a ticket for this flight? She doesn't look like she belongs here." The words hit like a punch to the stomach. Chloe's breath catches, her eyes widening, fixed on the sketchbook as if she could hide inside it. A girl like that, what does that mean? Her clothes, the faded Dallas Cowboys t-shirt, the ripped jeans, the mud-caked sneakers? Or is it something else? Something she's always known was there, but her mother, Vivian, tried to shield her from. Her black skin, her curly hair tied in a simple ponytail, the worn backpack carrying Benny, her teddy bear. Chloe presses her lips together, trying to swallow the lump in her throat, but it only grows, suffocating. She risks a glance at the flight attendants. Ashley laughs, a sharp, cruel sound that echoes down the aisle, and responds in a tone that doesn't bother to be discreet. "Seriously, Megan, look at her. That backpack looks like it came from the trash, and alone, I doubt her family could afford this." Megan snickers, shaking her head. "Right? And I'm the president of the USA," she mocks, her eyes glinting with a pleasure Chloe doesn't understand, but that makes her feel small, as if she's shrinking in her seat. Chloe lowers her head, her curls falling over her face like a curtain. She wants to disappear, to melt into the seat, to become as invisible as the flight attendants seem to wish. Her hands grip the sketchbook so tightly her knuckles turn white. She thinks of her mother, Vivian, a woman who fought the world to become CEO of Horizon Airlines, who always told Chloe she was strong, that her voice mattered. But there, mid-flight, surrounded by stares and laughter, Chloe feels anything but strong. She feels wrong, like she's trespassed into a space that isn't hers. A passenger in the row ahead, a middle-aged man with thick-rimmed glasses, turns to look, alerted by the flight attendant's tone. He frowns, sizing Chloe up as if deciding whether she truly belongs there. Chloe catches his stare and buries her face in her sketchbook. Her heart racing, she tries to recall her mother's words. "You are enough, Chloe. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise." But Megan's words ring louder. A girl like that. Each syllable feels like a stone hurled at her, and Chloe feels their weight piling up, crushing her confidence. Trying to ground herself, she slips her hand into her backpack and touches Benny, the teddy bear. His faded fur and missing eye are familiar, comforting, a piece of home, of the grandmother waiting in Chicago. She imagines her grandma's raspy voice, telling stories of facing stairs and words like these, of marching for rights Chloe now carries. "You're stronger than you think," her grandma always said. But in that moment, Chloe doesn't feel strong. She feels alone, exposed, as if the entire plane is judging her. Ashley and Megan continue their work, serving drinks and snacks to other passengers with fake smiles and kind words for Chloe. Though there's only silence and contempt. She looks out the window, the clouds now dark against the night sky, and tries to cling to the hope she felt entering the airport. But hope is slippery, hard to hold, and the tears she's fought so hard to suppress begin to form, hot and heavy, in the corners of her eyes. She blinks quickly, not wanting the flight attendants or any passenger to see. "Don't cry," she whispers to herself, her voice trembling. "You've got this, Chloe." But the cruel words of Megan and Ashley echo in her mind, like a refrain that won't stop. She clutches Benny tighter inside her backpack, wishing the flight would end, that she could run into her grandma's arms and forget it all. Yet the worst is still to come, and Chloe, unaware, is about to face an even greater test of her courage and resilience. Chloe Davis, a 12-year-old black girl, boarded her first solo trip full of hope and dreams of adventure. Daughter of Vivian Davis, CEO of Horizon Airlines, she chose simplicity, with her old Dallas Cowboys t-shirt and muddy sneakers, carrying only a worn backpack and her teddy bear, Benny. But what should have been an exciting journey to visit her grandmother in Chicago has turned into a nightmare. On the flight, flight attendants Ashley and Megan treated her with contempt, denying her a simple glass of water and questioning her presence with cruel, prejudiced words. "How does a girl like that get a ticket for this flight?" they mocked, making Chloe feel small and unwanted. Now, the situation is about to worsen, and Chloe will face a public humiliation that will test her courage like never before. The plane slices through the night sky, the cabin lights glowing softly as passengers settle into their seats. Chloe Davis, curled up in seat 3B, tries to make herself invisible, her eyes fixed on the window where dark clouds hide any trace of the world below. Her hands clutch her sketchbook, fingers still trembling from the venomous words of flight attendants Ashley and Megan. "A girl like that," they said, laughing, as if Chloe were an intruder in a space not meant for her. The lump in her throat is nearly suffocating, and she bites her lip hard, fighting back tears that threaten to spill. Benny, her teddy bear, is tucked away in the backpack under the seat, but she desperately wishes she could hold him, as if he could shield her from the weight of the stares and cruel words. Suddenly, a crackle cuts through the air. The plane's intercom system clicks on, and Ashley's voice echoes through the cabin, cold and authoritative, laced with a sadistic pleasure. "Attention, passengers. We have an unaccompanied minor who seems to be on the wrong flight. Does anyone know her?" The silence that follows is deafening, and Chloe feels every eye in the plane turn toward her. Her heart pounds so fiercely she fears others might hear it. She lowers her head, curls falling over her face, but there's no escaping the attention. Passengers in nearby rows turn, some with curiosity, others with disdain, as Ashley points directly at her, the smile on her face crueler than ever. Megan, standing beside Ashley, adds in a falsely concerned tone, just to make sure she's in the right place. "We don't want any trouble, do we?" The words drip with sarcasm that makes Chloe's skin burn. A middle-aged man in the row ahead, the same one who stared earlier, mutters loudly enough to be heard, "She shouldn't be here. Kids like that cause trouble." Other passengers begin whispering among themselves, and Chloe feels the weight of each stare, as if she's being crushed. A woman with large glasses shakes her head, as if disapproving of Chloe's presence, while a young man nearby snaps a discreet photo with his phone, the flash briefly lighting the cabin. Chloe presses her sketchbook to her chest, fingers digging into the paper, her face burning with shame. The tears she fought so hard to hold back now stream hot down her cheeks, dripping onto the seat. She wants to scream, to explain that her mother owns the airline, that she has every right to be here, that she's just a girl going to see her grandma. But the words won't come. Her voice is trapped, choked by the humiliation filling the cabin. She looks at the window, but the reflection in the glass shows only her tear-streaked face. Eyes wide with fear and sadness. Ashley, still holding the microphone, continues, as if relishing the spectacle. If anyone knows who she is, please let us know. We need to confirm if she really belongs on this flight. The tone is so condescending it makes Chloe want to vanish. She thinks of her mother, Vivian, and the pride she felt giving her the ticket. She thinks of her grandma, waiting in Chicago with cinnamon rolls and stories of courage. But in that moment, it all feels distant, like a dream that no longer belongs to her. She curls tighter in her seat, hugging the sketchbook like a shield, wishing the plane's floor would open and swallow her. The passengers' whispers continue, some louder, others hushed, but all laden with judgment. How do they let a kid like that travel alone? One voice says, she looks lost. Another comments, each word is a needle, piercing the little confidence Chloe had left. She grabs her backpack with trembling hands and fumbles until she finds Benny, clutching the teddy bear to her chest, beneath the sketchbook, as if he could protect her. But even Benny can't erase the feeling of being exposed, turned into a spectacle for strangers who don't know her, who don't care. The plane continues its journey, indifferent to Chloe's pain. Ashley and Megan return to their duties, serving drinks with fake smiles to other passengers, as if nothing happened. But for Chloe, the world has shifted. The adventure that began with such hope is now a nightmare, and she feels more alone than ever, lost in a sea of stares and words that make her question her place in the world. She closes her eyes, tears still falling, and whispers to herself, almost inaudibly, "You are enough, Chloe." But for the first time, she doesn't believe her own words. The interior of the Horizon Airlines plane feels suffocating to Chloe Davis. Despite the cold air conditioning blowing against her skin, seated into 3B, she's hunched over, arms wrapped around her sketchbook as if it's the only thing keeping her grounded. Tears still stream silently down her face, leaving hot trails she doesn't bother to wipe away. Ashley's cruel announcement over the intercom, "We have an unaccompanied minor who seems to be on the wrong flight," still echoes in her mind, along with the murmurs and stares from other passengers. The humiliation wraps around her like a thick fog, and each heartbeat screams that she doesn't belong here. At 12 years old, Chloe has never felt so small, so unwanted. Ashley and Megan, now back in the aisle, exchange glances as they push the beverage cart, their fake smiles contrasting with the venom they've spewed at Chloe. She tries to focus on the window, where the night sky is a black void, but the reflection in the glass shows only her tear-stained face, curls missily framing her eyes. She clutches Benny, the teddy bear, hidden in the backpack under the seat, seeking some comfort. But even that feels futile. Her mother's voice, Vivian's, echoes faintly in her head, "You are enough, Chloe." But the words can't pierce the pain consuming her. Suddenly, Ashley appears beside Chloe's seat, arms crossed, her face stern. "You need to come with me," she says, her voice cold and authoritative, leaving no room for argument. Chloe blinks, confused, her heart racing. "Buddy, I showed my ticket," she murmurs, her voice trembling as she fumbles for the crumpled boarding pass with fingers that barely obey. Ashley doesn't even glance at the paper. "That's not enough. Get up, now." The tone is so sharp it sends a shiver down Chloe's spine. Megan joins them, blocking the aisle, and adds with an icy smile, "Kids like you shouldn't travel alone. We'll sort this out at the gate." Chloe feels the ground vanish beneath her feet. The plane is still at the gate, something she hadn't realized. So consumed was she by her own pain. The other passengers watch, some with morbid curiosity, others with discomfort, but no one speaks in her defense. A suited man mutters something about flight safety, while a woman nearby shakes her head, as if approving of the flight attendants' decision. Chloe tries to speak, to explain that her mother is Vivian Davis, the CEO of Horizon Airlines, that she has permission to be there. But the words stick in her throat, choked by fear and shame. She feels like a criminal, as if she's done something wrong just by existing. Ashley grabs Chloe's arm firmly, her fingers digging in more than necessary, and pulls her from the seat. "Come on, don't make a scene," she says, her voice dripping with disdain. Chloe stumbles as she stands, her sketchbook falling to the floor with a soft thud. She bends quickly to retrieve it, but Megan is already nudging the backpack with her foot, as if it's an unwanted object. "Grab your stuff and move," Megan orders, her tone so harsh it makes Chloe flinch. She shoves the sketchbook into her backpack, clutching Benny tightly to her chest, and follows the flight attendants down the aisle, eyes fixed on the floor to avoid the passengers' stares. Each step is a battle. The passengers' whispers trail her like a chorus of judgment. What did she do? She doesn't look like she belongs here. What a shame. Chloe's face burns, tears falling faster now, dripping onto the plane's carpet. She wants to scream, to run, but her legs feel like lead. Ashley and Megan lead her to the aircraft door, where a gate agent waits, visibly confused. "She shouldn't be on this flight," Ashley says, not even glancing at Chloe. "We haven't verified her documentation. It's a blatant lie." Chloe showed her ticket and authorization form, but no one bothers to check. The gate agent hesitates, looking at Chloe, who's trembling, clutching her backpack like it's her only shield. But the records he begins, but Megan cuts him off. "We've made our decision. She can't stay." Without further explanation, Ashley gives Chloe a gentle but firm push out of the plane, back into the airport terminal. The aircraft door closes behind her with a final click, and the sound of the engines powering up echoes as the plane prepares to take off. Chloe stands alone in the terminal, the crumpled ticket in her hand, her backpack slung over one shoulder, Benny pressed to her chest. The world seems to collapse around her. The terminal at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, once full of promises of adventure, is now a cold, hostile place. The sounds of announcements, rolling suitcases, and passengers' voices blend into an indistinct roar. Chloe feels the weight of abandonment, as if the entire world has turned its back on her. Why did this happen? Because of her clothes, her skin, being alone. Ashley and Megan's words echo in her mind. "Kids like you shouldn't travel alone." She slumps to the floor, leaning against a cold wall, and hugs her knees, her face buried in her arms. Tears fall freely now, soaking her Dallas Cowboys t-shirt, and she feels small, rejected, as if she has no place in the world. The distant sound of the plane taking off reverberates, carrying away the hope Chloe held when she entered the airport. She looks at the crumpled ticket in her hands, now stained with tears, and feels a wave of despair. How will she tell her grandma? How will she face her mother, Vivian? After failing at something as simple as a flight, Chloe clutches Benny tighter. The teddy bear, her only link to something safe, something loved. She doesn't understand why she was treated this way, but the pain is real, raw, and makes her question everything she knows about herself. Sitting there on the cold terminal floor, Chloe feels lost. But somewhere deep inside, a tiny spark of strength begins to flicker, a spark she doesn't yet know how to use, but one that will carry her into the next chapter of her journey. The terminal at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport is a blur of sounds and motion, but for Chloe Davis, curled up against a cold wall, the world seems to have stopped. The 12-year-old sits on the floor, knees drawn to her chest, her worn backpack discarded beside her like a dead weight. Benny, her teddy bear, is clutched in her arms, his faded fur stained by the tears streaming endlessly from her eyes. The plane ticket, now a crumpled, damp piece of paper, lies abandoned next to her, a cruel reminder of the flight she couldn't take. The distant sound of the Horizon Airlines plane taking off still rings in her ears, each roar of the engines mocking the hope she carried hours earlier. Chloe sobs, her body shaking with each ragged breath. The humiliation on the flight, the passenger stares, the cruel words of Ashley and Megan, the public expulsion as if she were an intruder weighs on her like a storm. "Kids like you shouldn't travel alone," Megan had said, and those words echo in her mind, cutting deeper with each repetition. What does "kids like you" mean? Her faded Dallas Cowboys t-shirt with the number 22, her ripped jeans, stained with Texas red dirt? Or is it her black skin, her curly hair tied in a simple ponytail? Chloe doesn't know, but each possibility is a knife, making her question everything she's ever believed about herself. She buries her face in her knees, her curls falling over her face like a curtain that can't protect her. "Why me?" she whispers, her voice broken, barely audible amidst the terminal's noise. She thinks of her mother, Vivian, the CEO of Horizon Airlines, a woman who fought the world to get where she is. Vivian always told Chloe she was strong, that her voice mattered, that she could be anything. But there, alone on the cold airport floor, Chloe feels anything but strong. She feels dirty, unworthy, as if she's done something wrong just by existing. The thought of disappointing her mother chokes her further, and a fresh sob escapes. Shaking her small frame, Chloe clutches Benny tighter, the teddy bear's missing eye seeming to mirror her own sadness. She thinks of her grandma, waiting in Chicago, probably checking the clock, picturing Chloe stepping off the plane with a bright smile. How can she explain what happened? How can she tell her she was thrown off the flight, humiliated in front of strangers, just for being herself? The image of her grandma, with her raspy laugh and cinnamon rolls, should be a comfort. But now it only deepens the pain. Chloe feels like she's failed not just her grandma, but her mother and herself. The airport sounds announcements over the loudspeakers, the drag of suitcases. Muffled conversations feel distant, as if Chloe exists in a separate world, isolated by her pain. She stares at the crumpled ticket on the floor, the Horizon Airlines logo mocking her. Her mother built this company. But in that moment, it means nothing. Chloe recalls the stories Vivian shared about the racism she faced, how she fought to be respected. "You'll never go through what I did," Vivian had promised. But now Chloe feels that promise has been broken. Was it her skin, her clothes, being alone? She has no answers, only questions swirling in her mind like a whirlwind. With trembling fingers, Chloe pulls her phone from her backpack. The screen is cracked in one corner, a used gift Vivian insisted she carry for emergencies. She hesitates, her thumb hovering over her mother's number. Part of her wants to call, to tell everything, to let Vivian fix the world as she always does. But another part, drowning in shame, whispers that she should have handled it herself, that she should have been stronger, that she failed by not even completing a flight. Tears fall faster, dripping onto the phone screen, and Chloe lets out a low whimper, a sound of pure anguish. Finally, she can't bear it anymore. With hands shaking so badly she can barely hold the phone, she dials Vivian's number. The ringing feels eternal, each second amplifying her anxiety. When her mother's voice comes through, "Chloe, are you okay?" The dam inside her breaks. "Mom," she starts, but her voice fails, swallowed by sobs. She presses the phone to her ear, her body hunched as if shielding herself from the pain. They kicked me off the flight," she manages, the words coming out in fragments. "They said I shouldn't be there because of how I look." On the other end, there's a brief silence, but Chloe can sense the fury and pain in her mother's breathing. "Chloe, my girl," Vivian says, her voice firm but heavy with emotion. "You did nothing wrong. I'm coming there now." The words are a thread of hope, but Chloe still feels broken, as if the world has torn a piece of her away. She hangs up and curls back into her knees, Benny pressed to her chest, tears falling endlessly. In the crowded terminal, she's just a black girl, alone, crying on the floor. But inside her, a spark of strength begins to form, a spark that, even in her collapse, promises she won't be defeated. The terminal at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport pulses with the relentless rhythm of travelers. But for Chloe Davis, curled against the wall, the world is a blur of noise and loneliness. Her sobs are weaker now, exhausted, but tears still stream, soaking her faded Dallas Cowboys t-shirt. Benny, her teddy bear, is clutched to her chest, his missing eye seeming to share the pain consuming her. The crumpled ticket, discarded beside her worn backpack, is a cruel reminder of the humiliation she endured on the Horizon Airlines flight. The words of flight attendants Ashley and Megan, "Kids like you shouldn't travel alone," echo in her mind, each syllable reinforcing the feeling of being small, unworthy, rejected. Suddenly, the sound of rapid footsteps cuts through the terminal's chaos. Chloe lifts her head, eyes swollen, and sees a figure approaching like a force of nature. It's Vivian Davis, her mother, the CEO of Horizon Airlines, dressed in an impeccable gray suit that contrasts with the fire in her brown eyes. Her sleek hair, tied in an elegant bun, sways slightly as she strides through the terminal with a determination that makes people instinctively step aside. Vivian carries a leather bag in one hand, but her fists are clenched, as if holding back a storm ready to erupt. When her eyes find Chloe, crumpled on the floor, Vivian's face softens for a moment, but the fury returns, fiercer, fueled by her daughter's pain. "Chloe." Vivian's voice is firm but thick with emotion, echoing through the terminal. She rushes the final steps and kneels before her daughter, heedless of the cold floor or the curious stares of passers-by. Her arms wrap Chloe in a tight embrace, pulling her close as if she could shield her from all the world's harm. "My girl," Vivian murmurs, her voice trembling with love and rage. "You'll never go through this again. I promise." "Chloe." melts into the embrace, sobs returning fiercely, but now mixed with a relief she hasn't felt since boarding the plane. Her mother's familiar lavender scent is a reminder of home, of safety. Vivian gently pulls Chloe back, holding her face with both hands. Her thumbs wipe the tears from her daughter's cheeks, and she studies Chloe's swollen eyes, her messy curly hair, her stained t-shirt. "You are perfect just as you are," Vivian says, each word spoken with a conviction that seems to defy the world. "No one has the right to treat you like this, no one." Chloe nods, still trembling, but her mother's steady gaze rekindles a tiny spark of strength within her. She clutches Benny tighter, as if the teddy bear could absorb the courage Vivian is giving her. Vivian stands, helping Chloe to her feet. She picks up the worn backpack from the floor and places it carefully on her daughter's shoulders, as if it's a symbol of her dignity. Then her expression shifts. The loving mother gives way to the relentless executive, a woman who built an empire facing prejudice and closed doors. "Stay close to me," she says to Chloe, her voice now cold, sharp as a blade. Vivian pulls her phone from her bag and makes a quick call, speaking in a tone that brooks no argument. "I want the flight to 37 manager in the terminal, now, and bring flight attendants Ashley and Megan." She hangs up without waiting for a response, her eyes fixed on the Horizon Airlines counter, where employees begin to stir, visibly nervous. Chloe watches her mother, her heart still heavy but now threaded, with admiration cutting through the pain. She's never seen Vivian like this, a blend of maternal love and unquestionable authority. The counter staff exchange anxious glances, and one, a middle-aged man with a supervisor badge, approaches hesitantly. "Ms. Davis," he begins, his voice shaky. "Was there an issue with?" Vivian cuts him off with a look that could shatter glass. "Issue," she repeats, her voice low but laced with venom. "My daughter was humiliated and removed from a flight at my airline. This isn't an issue, it's a betrayal." The supervisor swallows hard, his face pale, and stammers an explanation. But Vivian isn't listening. She holds Chloe's hand firmly, as if anchoring her, and strides toward the counter, where other employees now watch in silence. Chloe feels the weight of their stares, but this time it's different, not judgmental, but fearful, as if they know a storm is about to break. She grips her mother's hand, the crumpled ticket still tucked in her pocket, and feels, for Angstrom's law, that for the first time since boarding the plane, she isn't alone. Vivian stops in front of the counter, her eyes scanning each employee as if memorizing their faces. "I want all the records for that flight," she orders, her voice ringing with authority. "And I want Ashley and Megan here, now, to explain why they decided to turn my daughter into a spectacle." The silence that follows is heavy, broken only by a distant announcement over the loudspeaker. Chloe looks at her mother, then at the floor, her heart racing. She knows something big is coming, something that will change everything. And, despite the pain still lodged in her chest, she feels, for the first time, that her voice and her mother's will be heard. The terminal at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport seems to shrink under the weight of Vivian Davis's presence. The CEO of Horizon Airlines, in her impeccable gray suit and with a gaze that cuts like steel, holds Chloe's hand with a firmness that conveys protection and purpose. Chloe, still trembling, clutches Benny, her teddy bear, to her chest, her swollen eyes fixed on her mother. Her faded Dallas Cowboys t-shirt is stained with tears, and her worn backpack hangs from one shoulder. But Vivian's presence makes Chloe feel, for the first time since the flight, like she can face the world. The Horizon Airlines counter, just a few meters away, is a stage of tension, with employees exchanging nervous glances and the supervisor, sweating, trying to maintain composure. Vivian points to a side door marked "Meeting Room, Staff Only," and orders, in a voice that allows no hesitation, "I want Ashley, Megan, and the flight manager in there, now." The supervisor nods, nearly tripping as he rushes to comply. Chloe's heart races, a mix of fear and curiosity. She looks at her mother, admiring her upright posture, her chin raised, the authority radiating from every movement. Vivian, sensing her daughter's gaze, squeezes her hand tighter and whispers, "You'll see, Chloe, no one messes with my girl and gets away with it." Inside the room, the air is thick with silence and anticipation. The conference table is surrounded by empty chairs, and a window overlooks the tarmac, where planes take off under the dark sky. Ashley and Megan enter, their pristine uniforms contrasting with their uneasy expressions. Ashley crosses her arms, trying to maintain a facade of confidence, while Megan fidgets nervously with her badge. The flight manager, a gray-haired man named Robert, follows, his face pale as he recognizes Vivian. Chloe, seated beside her mother, holds Benny in one hand and the crumpled ticket in the other, feeling small but shielded by Vivian's commanding presence. Vivian stands, her leather bag resting on the table like a symbol of her authority. My daughter, she begins, her voice steady but vibrating with emotion, was humiliated, ridiculed, and removed from a flight on my airline because of the color of her skin and the clothes she chose to wear. She points to Chloe, who lowers her head, curls falling over her face. You, she continues, locking eyes with Ashley and Megan, thought you could treat her like she was nothing, but today, you'll learn that she is everything. Ashley opens her mouth to protest, but Vivian cuts her off, grabbing Chloe's phone from the backpack. Before you try to defend yourselves, listen to this. She presses play, and the room fills with the muffled but clear sound of Ashley and Megan's voices from the flight. How does a girl like that get a ticket for this flight? She doesn't look like she belongs here, Megan says, followed by Ashley's cruel laugh. Looks like she got that backpack from the trash. The intercom announcement follows. We have an unaccompanied minor who seems to be on the wrong flight. Each word lands like a blow, and Chloe's face burns with renewed shame, but also relief as she sees the flight attendant's faces pale. Megan stammers, eyes wide. We were just ensuring the flight's safety. Ashley nods, her voice shaky. She looked suspicious, traveling alone. In those clothes. Vivian slams her hand on the table, the sound echoing like thunder. Suspicious, she repeats, her voice dripping with contempt. My daughter had a valid ticket, signed authorization, and the right to be on that flight. You judged her by her skin, her clothes, her age. You made her feel she didn't belong. And this, she points to the phone, is proof of your racism and cruelty. Robert, the manager, tries to intervene, raising his hands. Ms. Davis, perhaps we can resolve this with training. A suspension. Vivian glares at him, her eyes glinting with barely contained tears of rage. Training? My daughter was dragged off a plane like a criminal. There's no second chance for this. She turns to Ashley and Megan, now visibly shrinking. You're fired, effective immediately. Hand over your badges and get out of my airline. Ashley tries to argue, her voice rising in desperation. This is unfair. We were just doing our job. But Vivian cuts her off, her voice so sharp it seems to slice the air. Your job was to ensure passenger safety and comfort, not to humiliate a child out. Megan, tears in her eyes, rips off her badge and tosses it onto the table, while Ashley, defeated, does the same. The two leave the room in silence, shoulders slumped, the weight of humiliation now on them. Chloe watches it all, her heart still racing, but a weight beginning to lift from her shoulders. She looks at her mother, who sits beside her and takes her hand, her eyes softening. Did you see, Chloe? Vivian says, her voice calmer but filled with love. No one can diminish you without consequences. You're stronger than you know. Chloe nods, a tear falling, but this time not from pain, but from gratitude. She clutches Benny tighter, feeling, for the first time, that she might truly be enough. While Vivian gives instructions to the manager to review the company's protocols, Chloe gazes out the window, watching the lights of planes on the tarmac. The pain from the flight is still there, raw and real, but her mother's strength and the justice she just witnessed begin to rekindle the hope she thought she'd lost. She knows the journey isn't over, but with Vivian by her side, she feels she can face anything. The Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, which hours earlier felt like a maze of hostility to Chloe Davis, now carries a new energy. The 12-year-old walks beside her mother, Vivian Davis, the CEO of Horizon Airlines, through the brightly lit terminal, her worn backpack swaying on her shoulders. Her faded Dallas Cowboys t-shirt is still stained with tears, and Benny, the one-eyed teddy bear, is secure in her arms. But something has shifted. The weight of humiliation that made her curl up on the terminal floor begins to lift, replaced by a spark of strength glinting in her brown eyes. Vivian, in her impeccable gray suit, holds her daughter's hand firmly, her face a blend of maternal love and unyielding determination. After the confrontation in the meeting room, where Vivian fired flight attendants Ashley and Megan for their racist behavior, the atmosphere at the Horizon Airlines counter is one of respectful silence. Employees avoid eye contact, but some offer shy smiles to Chloe, as if acknowledging the company's mistake. Vivian, wasting no time, arranged a new flight to Chicago, but with a difference. You're flying first class, my girl, she told Chloe, her voice soft but laden with intent. Not because we need luxury, but because you deserve to be treated as the incredible person you are. At the boarding gate, Vivian stops and kneels to meet Chloe's eyes. "Ready?" she asks, tucking a loose curl behind her daughter's ear. Chloe hesitates, the new ticket gleaming in her hands, its smooth paper contrasting with the crumpled one from the previous flight. She thinks of Ashley and Megan's cruel words. The passenger stares, the feeling of being ejected as if she didn't belong. But then she looks at her mother, whose strength turned her pain into justice, and nods. "Ready," she murmurs, a shy smile lighting her face for the first time that day. As they board, Vivian leads Chloe to the first-class cabin, where spacious seats and impeccable service await. The crew, already informed of the CEO's daughter's presence, lines up to greet them. Vivian, with the posture of someone in command, introduces Chloe with pride. "This is Chloe Davis, my daughter, and she's more important than anyone here." The pilot, a black woman with a warm smile, shakes Chloe's hand. "Welcome aboard, Chloe. This flight is for you." The other crew members applaud, and Chloe, surprised, feels her face warm. But this time with gratitude, she clutches Benny to her chest and smiles, a genuine smile, reflecting the hopeful girl who entered the airport hours earlier. Seated by the window in first class, with Vivian in the seat beside her, Chloe Davis feels the soft leather of the seat envelop her, a stark contrast to the rigid economy seat of the previous flight. Through the window, the dark sky is dotted with tarmac lights, twinkling like fallen stars. Pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat, the engine's roar, once an echo of rejection, is now a comforting hum, like a lullaby promising to carry her to safety. Chloe holds Benny close, his faded fur brushing her Dallas Cowboys t-shirt, and lets her eyes wander to the glass, where her reflection still marked by dried tears blends with the clouds beginning to appear. Vivian, in her pristine gray suit, takes her daughter's hand, intertwining their fingers with a tenderness that carries years of struggles and triumphs. "You faced something terrible today, Chloe," she whispers, her voice soft but firm, like the wind before a storm. "But you came out stronger. Never forget that." Chloe nods, feeling her mother's words take root in her heart, like seeds planted in fertile soil. She thinks of her grandma, waiting in Chicago, with her flour-stained apron and the promise of warm cinnamon rolls, the sweet aroma mingling with the scent of fresh coffee that always fills the small apartment. For the first time, Chloe feels she can tell her grandma the story, not just the pain of Ashley and Megan's cruel words, or the shame of being removed from the flight, but the courage she discovered within herself, a courage she didn't even know she had. A flight attendant, a young black woman with a kind smile, approaches with a tray. "Something to drink, Miss Davis?" she asks, her tone respectful, almost reverent. Chloe hesitates, the memory of the denied glass of water still fresh, but Vivian's encouraging look prompts her to speak. "Orange juice, please," she says, her voice quiet but clear. The attendant nods, handing her the glass with a folded napkin, and adds, "It's an honor to have you on board." Chloe blinks, surprised, and feels warmth rise to her face, not from shame but from something new, pride, perhaps. She takes a sip of the juice, the citrus tang dancing on her tongue, and glances at Vivian, who smiles, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Chloe turns back to the window, where the sky now reveals the first clouds, fluffy and silver under the moonlight. She thinks of her sketchbook in her backpack, where she drew clouds like these, imagining sky-bound adventures. "Mom," she murmurs, almost shyly, "do you think Grandma will like hearing about today?" Vivian squeezes her hand, her thumb tracing gentle circles on Chloe's skin. "She'll be proud of you, Chloe, just like I am. You faced prejudice and didn't let it define you." The words resonate in Chloe's mind, mingling with her grandma's stories of marching for civil rights, of facing stares and words that tried to diminish her. Chloe realizes, with a pang in her chest, that she, too, has been part of a fight, however small, and that her story now carries the same weight. Before takeoff, Vivian stands, her movement drawing the crew's attention. With Chloe watching, she gathers the staff in the first-class aisle, her commanding presence softened by the warmth in her voice. "What happened to my daughter today will never happen again at Horizon Airlines," she declares, each word heavy with conviction. "From now on, every employee will undergo mandatory training against racism and discrimination. This airline exists to unite people, not divide them." The crew nods, some with tears in their eyes, others with determined expressions. The pilot, who greeted Chloe earlier, places a hand on Vivian's shoulder, murmuring, "We're with you, Ms. Davis." Chloe feels a warmth in her chest, as if her raw, personal pain has sparked something bigger, something that could change the world, even if just a little. She looks at her mother, marveling at the strength that turns tragedies into hope, and feels, for the first time, that she, too, can carry that strength. The plane takes off, the gentle thrust pressing Chloe into her seat, and she watches Dallas's lights vanish below, swallowed by the darkness. The clouds, now closer, look like cotton castles, just as she imagined in her drawings. She traces one's outline with her finger on the window, an almost unconscious gesture, and whispers to herself, "You are enough, Chloe." The phrase, once fragile against the flight attendant's cruel words, now rings true, anchored by the justice she witnessed and the love surrounding her. The pain from the earlier flight lingers, an invisible scar that will ache for a while, but she knows she's not alone. Vivian's hand, warm and firm, reminds her she has an ally, a defender, a mother who will fight for her to the end. Chloe picks up Benny and sets him on her lap, adjusting him as if he, too, deserves to enjoy the view. She pictures her grandma, with her raspy laugh and story-filled eyes, waiting at Chicago's airport. She imagines the tight hug she'll receive, the warmth of the apartment, the sound of her grandma's voice saying, "My girl, you're stronger than you know." For the first time, Chloe believes it. She closes her eyes, the hum of the engines lulling her thoughts, and lets the image of her grandma fill her mind. The journey was more than a flight. It was a test of who she is, what she can overcome, and the legacy of strength she carries from her grandma, her mother, and now, herself. With Benny in her lap, her mother's hand in hers, and the sky opening before her, Chloe Davis feels, for the first time, that she not only belongs to the world but can shape it, soaring free, strong, and whole.